Hey guys, my name's Cade Watson, and I'm doing a movie review of Hotel Rwanda. This movie came out in 2004, so nearly 16 years ago this year. It stars some big people like Don Cheadle, Joaquin Phoenix. Even though he's in it for a little role, he's still in there. The guy who played Joker this past year. The movie is about the Rwandan attacks, or about the Rwandan genocide in 1994. And just a basic overview of the plot. There are two tribes, or there are two groups of people, the Tutsis and the Hutus. If I don't really know how to pronounce it very well, but there are two tribes of people. The Tutus are the minority, or the Tutais are the minority, and the Hutus are the majority. And the Hutus are currently, their president's trying to get a peace treaty, and they're trying to get peace with the Tutsis. Well, the Hutus' president was shot down in a plane. Now, who did that is still a conspiracy. They don't know, but they blamed it on the Tutus rebellion, and that started an uproar. That started some extremists from the Hutu side and their militia to execute this mass genocide and this just horrible, inhumane killing of a whole tribe and culture of people. They called them cockroaches. They had no value for their life. And the movie is based around this man who's a hotel manager. He's a Hutu, and he takes these people in. Usually in his hotel is like white, sophisticated, 5-star, 4-star, 5-star hotel, like rich American, European tourist. And eventually it becomes like a refugee camp. He takes these people in, and he basically just he saves them from the outside militia and what they could have done to them if they would have never come there. And he pretty much just saves over 1,200 people, or right at 1,200 people, by just being a good hotel manager. And he really, the best way to put it is just these people came to him because he had this hotel, and they had evacuated and cleared out all the Americans. So all of these people kept coming. Like, there was a woman in the movie who was like a medic, or like a nurse, and she brought in a van full of children who, some of them had even been slaughtered. It was a very, very sad story about some of them had been slaughtered, and the Hutus were just killing babies and innocent children with no regard. And they were bringing all of these children, or bringing them to this. The main man was named Paul, and Paul had just cared about protecting his family, but it turned around to where he was just, instead of protecting his family and thinking about his family, he eventually took all these people into his hotel and was like, you know what, I care about their lives, I care about these people, and they're just carrying out a mass murder. And he really just cared to keep these people safe. So the movie revolves around these Tutus, refugees, trying to escape the Hutu militia and rebellion that is massively killing all of these people, and they're trying to get in the hotel to escape this, or to hide from just this evil that is going on around them. And it really is just a wonderful movie, and that's basically just the overview of the plot. Just some general description. The cinematic experience, personally, I really enjoyed the movie. I loved the movie. I thought that it displayed dark, but sometimes that's what we need as people, because you can't just always have happy-go-lucky just movies that make you smile, because you realize that's not how the world really is. And this movie makes you realize how inhumane and how evil and how corrupt our world can be, and how just prominent the devil truly is. And it's just it's an amazing movie that represents something that is honestly kind of kept under the rug, because up until this class, I had no clue this even happened, and just a mass genocide of nearly 1 million people. And I genuinely believe it's because of the region of where it's at is why it has been neglected. Just that genocide and that happening is just... this movie was it was a great cinematic experience. I'd give it probably about a 9 out of 10, because I'm not going to give it a full score, because I really don't like watching things that make me cry, or really mess with my heartstrings like that did. But it was a very well carried out movie. It was a wonderful plot. Paul doing what he did for the people, it was amazing. The emotion between him and his wife in the movie, it seemed like they were like there was a time whenever she was going to go and he was going to stay, and it just kind of, she was crying and it was pulling on her heartstrings, and he was like, you know what, take the kids, like I'm going to stay here and help these people out. And it was just beautiful. It was an amazing movie to watch, and it makes you really think about society and how we should treat people and just the evil things that are in society to help us correct ourselves and turn in a direction that is more positive. And that's just really what stands out to me. And the whole time I was watching it, the thing that really stands out to me is the similarities to it and Schindler's List. That's like my number one thing. Right when it came on, and I was catching the overview, kind of the plot, and I was like, okay, I know what this is going to be. Like a guy who takes these people in his hotel, watches over them, they end up not dying, and he's kind of like a hero. Not kind of, he is a hero. And he becomes less selfish and becomes more selfless. And I was like, you know what? This is Schindler's List. This is a Rwandan version of Schindler's List. Because like in Schindler's List, in this movie, Paul is a Hutu. Schindler's List, Schindler's a German. He is of the kind that is carrying out the killing. But he is the man who, without even really realizing the help he was doing, like Schindler was getting all these people in a factory, and he was getting them to work. But then eventually, toward the end, he realized, wait a minute, he saw the evil that was going on. He was like, wait a minute, I'm saving these people. And it turned from, I'm just hiring them as employees in my factory, to he saw the Holocaust and what was going on in the concentration camps. And he was like, dude, I'm saving these people. I'm doing them a favor. And that was, like, I'm saving these people. I'm doing them a favor. And that was the same thing that was happening in Hotel Rwanda with Paul. And if I could pronounce his last name, trust me, I would. But it is extremely long and complicated. But with Paul, he was just a hotel guy. He was just taking these people and thinking, okay, yeah, come on in. He was never thinking, I'm saving these people from the cruel execution and the reality that the Hutu extremists are pulling, or that they're putting on our land and on our nation, and what they're doing to this tribe of people. And it really was like a great comparison of Paul being like Schindler, taking all these people in, and he didn't realize the effect he was having, and that it really was just him taking these people in and saving their lives. Like, him saving their lives did not dawn on him, and the amount and the things that he did until the end, or towards the like 3/4 part of the movie, where he's like, wait a minute, I'm saving these people's lives. They were going down a back road. He went to go pick up supplies from a Hutu general. They're going down a back road, and he sees just a whole street full of dead bodies and a huge massacre. And that's when he realizes, it's not just me taking these people in because they need somewhere to go. It was a moment when he kind of clicked and realized, this is a massacre. This is something evil. Kind of like Schindler seeing the Holocaust in the concentration camps, thinking, this is evil. This is awful. I need to save these people and do my best to save them at all costs. And that is what he did. And that was my biggest thing I drew from the movie, is the comparison between him and Schindler. And it was just amazing. I know I rambled on about that for a while, but I could write a whole paper on the similarities between Oscar Schindler and then Paul in Hotel Rwanda, how they just brought the people in and didn't know what they were doing, but eventually saved their lives and were key factors in saving people from a mass genocide. And then on the analysis, Paul goes from protecting his family, wanting to protect his family, to protecting his neighbors. And that lines up with my morals and values, because I'm a Christian myself. And as hard as that is to do, and I know sometimes we don't always do that to the best of our abilities, I really want to be a good Christian guy. I really want to be a guy who cares about his neighbor and puts his neighbors first. And it all comes back to sharing the love of Jesus and trying to make Jesus as proud as possible, pleasing him and honoring him in every situation. So Paul protecting his family, that lines up with my values and my beliefs. And I don't know, in that situation, I would have had to have done what Paul did. And I know it's easier to say that when you're just watching the movie, but you would, just from a Christian standpoint, my morals and my values and my beliefs, I would have to have done what Paul would have done. I could not stand around and watch those people die. So my values and beliefs line up with that, rooted in my Christian foundation for sure. Now, would I have fired if the UN, they were there and they were peacekeepers? Now, they were not allowed to fire unless it was self-defense, and that was evident. The only time that the UN fired the entire movie was whenever they were getting Paul's family and some other refugees who had visas out of the country. They were taking them out and trying to get them away, but the Hutu extremists were like attacking the van that they were on, attacking the people, and the UN, finally, the guy got out of the car, or out of the van, and he was just getting attacked, so he just started shooting, and he ended up shooting one of the Hutus. and that was the only time they had shot the whole time, but it was in an act of self-defense. So in this situation, as awful as it is and as awful as it sounds, I would have to say orders are orders. And in this case anyway, regardless of their orders or not, you're the UN. You're not the Tutu extremists. You're not the Tutu rebels. You're not the Hutu extremists. You're the UN. You're there to keep peace. Now, self-defense, I completely agree. The one time he shot, it was in self-defense. He was in the right. But I think the UN firing shots at the Hutus for no reason, without self-defense, just siding with another, with the Tutsis, that would have created more animosity and would just brought the UN into a feud, into a war, into just battle that they couldn't have handled. It would have led them into favoring a side, and it would have just caused more of an uproar than what was already happening. So I agree with the UN not firing until they had to out of self-defense. Racism. This shouldn't be a question. Racism played a huge role in this, and I know we try to forget race. Racism exists. It exists in every realm. The past is the past. What happens, happens. But racism exists, whether you're Asian, you're black, you're white, whatever. There's racist people in every nationality towards different people. There's white people racist towards blacks, blacks towards whites, Asians towards whatever. There are so many racist people. But in this situation, it was truly just the white man, and I think it was more of a privileged thing too, because I don't know if all the big wigs at that time were white, but it was more of like these privileged countries. We don't want to step in on little Rwanda. There's this little African country, they can do their own thing. And it was truly sad to watch the surrounding nations just forget about them like they didn't exist. And I do think that racism played a role. I do think that the racism played a role in them being black, but I also believe that them being a small country and being who they were, a small country in Africa, and then I don't know if you could solely say racism, but I do think that had to play some sort of part in some people's minds, but I believe it was more of a the privileged, wealthy, high European, American. Those countries were probably thinking it's little Rwanda. Now, I believe if maybe it was a bigger country, regardless if they were black, they may have helped, but at this point it's all assumptions, and I don't want to say anything, but I do believe it went hand in hand with privilege from the richer countries not caring about a smaller Rwanda, and Rwanda being just African American. They were just black people going at it, fighting a war, and they're feuding, and we probably thought, nothing's going on, but it's a mass genocide. It was a genocide that we could have stepped in and intervened with, or anyone surrounding countries. Lord knows America always steps in everybody's business. We always have to clean stuff up. But anyone could have intervened and stepped in and stopped this. But it took until 1 million people were killed, nearly 1 million people were killed, for them to step up and do anything. And it was sad, truly sad. Now, the events in Somalia with America in 93, this one's a tough question, a tough situation, because America, you have to value your own people's lives. I know you need to watch out for your neighbor, but there has to be a little bit of a correlation, or a little bit of like a hand-in-hand, like a meet me halfway kind of thing with, I don't know, it's tough, and I knew this would be the toughest part of the review, because I don't know how you would send in your people into a land like that where another situation would happen, or where the helicopter got shot down, the bodies were dragged to the street. But then again, this is a different situation. I believe that America should have helped. I believe we should have intervened. I know we don't need to get in people's business all the time, but we're a country founded in Christian values. We used to be. That's fading away, sadly. But I believe we should help our neighbors, and we should be there for them. And I believe that America could have helped in this situation tremendously. And I believe that no matter what happened in the past, regardless, that's like saying, oh yeah, we went to Vietnam and 60,000 people got killed. That means we can never get in another war. No, you can't let the past reflect. Yeah, you can learn from mistakes. You can say we don't need to go about it like this way again, or do it like this again. But don't let the past come in the way of your values and who you are, because no matter how sad the helicopter crash was and the soldiers getting dragged to the streets in Somalia, these people needed help. That situation isn't this situation. America could have contacted other European countries and said, listen, we're intervening. These people are getting killed. Hundreds of thousands of people are getting killed. We need to go over there and check out what's going on. We have the firepower. We have the means to fix it, and we're not going to do anything. And it was truly sad. I understand it was a tough situation, but from my perspective and from the moral values I think American people should hold, I think you should help your neighbor, and if you have the ability to help them, not running in like chickens with your head cut off. But if you have the resources and the ability to help them, they should have helped them from mass murder and stopped what was going on in Rwanda. Now, jail time. I believe everyone that was responsible should be held accountable and should be in prison because there was 100,000. Now, the generals should be held to a greater responsibility. Yes, obviously. I believe, sad but true, I'm a death penalty person if it comes to that point. I believe that the death penalty in certain circumstances is correct. Heck, even in the Old Testament, it was death penalty to blaspheme God. So I just truly believe, and I know that from a Christian standpoint, that sounds kind of crazy and that sounds funny, but I truly believe that the generals and the men responsible for this are better off dead than in prison. They have too much power, they have too many connections, and I believe that killing them is a better help to humanity. It is helping society instead of leaving them in prison and people paying tax dollars for the resources for the prisoners, and the tax dollars that they're paying is going towards feeding these guys who killed 800,000 to 1 million people. I don't agree with that. Now, the 100,000 are the people that helped out, that carried it out. Yes, they should be held accountable. They should, admission to guilt, you know they're guilty. You don't have to do an admission to guilt in that situation, because then a lot of people are going to get off the hook for things that you know they did. And that's the thing. The justice system, it's amazing, but in this situation, justice is served by putting them in prison. The people that carried out the acts, who were led by generals, they should be put in prison for a very, very long time. But the generals themselves, I believe, should be on the death penalty. That is my opinion, because they are the masterminds. They carried that out. They would be better off not in this world, because you never know. The people, I don't want a death penalty on all the people, because heck, that would be a genocide in itself. Putting on putting 100,000 or putting a bunch of those soldiers or extremists to death, who were just listening to the orders of them. I know they had, their moral values weren't there, but they could have been influenced by those generals. Now those generals are dead, and you don't really know who those people are and what their values are now that those generals are gone, or now that that influence is in their lives. So I think it's completely different. But I do believe generals, death penalty, and then the soldiers should receive jail time 110%. I agree with that. And justice should be served in that department. Commanders and generals, blah, 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 blah. Paul in this situation reminds me of Jesus. And not like, I'm not comparing him to Jesus. No one's compared to Jesus. But Paul had a self-sacrifice to him. Like when Jesus went to die on the cross, he sacrificed himself for us. He died for us. And he put himself to death. And he went from heaven where he was righteous and became poor so that we might become rich. I was reading that in 2 Corinthians the other day. He became poor so that we might become rich. And he put himself low so that he could help and elevate others around him. And in this situation, that's what Paul did. And this is the scene that really got me and made me think, that is, when his family's leaving, he had the visa to get out. What did he do? He stayed with the people, let his family go. He sacrificed. He knew that the extremists would come there, and he knew he would probably die and never see his family again. But he said, I will not let these people die, or I will not sit around and watch while these people die. He stayed there and he sacrificed his life for those people. He was willing to sacrifice his life for those people and for their greater good, and he was selfless and put others before himself, similar to how Jesus did in our lives and with humanity. Conclusion. And in conclusion, sorry, voice crack there. The movie is amazing. I would recommend anyone to see it. I would recommend to see it, like I said, because of the things it brings out and how it's just a truly film to let you know that there's evil and how we need to treat each other, not let these things happen again, to learn from our mistakes. And it's a great movie. It's an amazing movie, and if you get the chance to watch it, then please watch it. It does have Don Cheadle. I'm a big Don Cheadle fan, and I was really surprised when I saw that in there. So I'm glad I watched this movie, and I'm glad it was an assignment. It really opened my eyes to some things, and I really appreciate you guys listening to this review. Thank you.